You keep telling yourself it's just bad timing, that the relationship failed because of them, that the anger, the fear, the pull toward chaos, that's just stress. But what if I told you something else is living your life for you? Something ancient, silent, hidden in plain sight. What if the reason you feel like you're always starting over is because a part of you, one you've never dared to meet, keeps sabotaging the parts of you that try to grow? You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are unconscious. And that is far more dangerous. There's a forgotten part of you, watching, waiting, shaping the way you love, the way you leave, the way you lose. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in patterns. It speaks in symbols. It speaks in the moments you say, I don't know what came over me. That is your shadow. And until you know it, until you make it conscious, you will mistake your pain for personality and your suffering for fate. Carl Jung didn't offer relief. He offered a mirror. And if you're still watching, then some part of you already knows. This isn't just a video. It's a reckoning. Now before we go further, pause with me. If this already stirs something deep in you, speak it into being. Leave a comment below, not for me, but for your soul. Tell me what truth you've been avoiding, and subscribe, not for information, but for the continuation of a conversation your unconscious has waited years to have. Now let's begin. Carl Jung wasn't trying to fix people. He wasn't chasing happiness or even healing, not the way we mean it today. He was trying to map the soul. Born in the quiet shadows of Switzerland in 1875, Jung was a child surrounded by silence, mystery, and the pull of something he couldn't name. While others looked outward, he looked inward, and what he saw there would haunt and guide him for the rest of his life. For a time, he walked beside Freud. The world knows this part well. Freud believed the unconscious was mostly a vault of repressed desires, especially sexual ones. But Jung saw something older, deeper. He saw the unconscious not as a vault, but as a vast underground cathedral. A place where symbols whispered in dreams, where archetypes lived like ancient gods, where your soul had been trying to speak to you all along. Jung broke from Freud because he refused to reduce the soul to biology. He knew there was more. And in that rupture, a new kind of psychology was born, one that doesn't treat symptoms but stories. Not what hurts, but why it's hurting. Let me show you what Jung saw. You wear a mask. Everyone does. Jung called it the persona. The part of you that smiles when you want to scream, that says, I'm fine, when you're crumbling. It's not fake, it's survival. You built it to be loved, to be accepted, to feel safe in a world that demands performance. But the longer you wear it, the more you forget there's something underneath. Something you buried when you were told you were too much, too sensitive, too angry, too wild, too quiet. That buried part is the shadow. And here's the paradox. The more you try to be good, the more power your shadow gains. The shadow isn't evil, it's unaccepted. It holds your creativity, your sexuality, your rage, your instincts, your grief, your intuition. Everything you were told not to be, it went there. You think you're making choices, but the shadow is choosing for you. It's not just you. Jung discovered that every human being carries this split, the self we show and the self we hide. And it's not just personal. Beneath your individual story lives something collective. Jung called it the collective unconscious, a deep, shared memory pool of humanity. It's not metaphor, it's psychic inheritance. In dreams, in myths, in art and religion, the same figures appear. The mother, the hero, the wise old man, the trickster, the lover, the child. These are archetypes, universal patterns that shape how we think, feel, and act. You don't have them, they have you. An archetype is not an idea, it's a force. When you fall madly in love, unable to explain why, the lover archetype has been activated. When you abandon your own needs to fix everyone else's, the hero has taken over. When you lash out, destroy, or flee just when something meaningful is about to begin, the shadow has surfaced. And until you learn to see these forces for what they are, they will wear your name, live your life, and call it you. Here's the deepest truth Jung discovered. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. We think we are awake, but we are mostly sleepwalking through stories written by ancestors, culture, trauma, and fear. The same fight. The same breakup, the same emptiness after the achievement. It's not coincidence, it's repetition. And repetition is the unconscious calling for recognition. Your suffering is not random, it's symbolic. Every anxiety you've ever had, every dream that won't let you go, every time you meet someone and feel something ancient ignite, these are not accidents, they are messages, encoded, symbolic, mythic. The soul does not speak in logic, it speaks in image, it speaks in story. And the question isn't, what's wrong with me? The question is, what is trying to be remembered through me? Jung didn't want you to be happy. He wanted you to be whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It's integration. It means walking with your shadow instead of denying it. It means hearing your dreams instead of dismissing them. It means recognizing that the patterns you can't escape are not there to punish you. They are the psyche's way of begging for transformation. When you are hurt in the same way, again and again, it is not failure. It is myth. It is the archetypal journey of return. You are not a mess. You are mid-myth. You are the hero, halfway through the dark forest. The child, still looking for the lost parent. The wanderer, finally ready to face what home really means. This is the work, not to escape, but to remember. You are not meant to become someone else. You are meant to become yourself. The self that was buried under performance. The self that was hidden behind the mask. The self that has waited patiently inside every dream, every heartbreak, every whisper of intuition you've tried to ignore. And so I ask you now, not who are you trying to become, but who did you abandon to survive? Because the moment you stop chasing self-improvement and begin the sacred work of self-recovery, everything changes. You don't have to be fearless. You have to be honest. You don't have to fix the past. You have to listen to what it still longs to tell you. And you don't have to find the light. You have to turn toward the darkness with your eyes open. The monsters you've been running from, they are not monsters. They are your lost parts, wearing fangs because they were never fed with love. Now take a breath, because this is not a story about healing. It is a story about remembering. And if you're still with me, you're not here by accident. Something in you has always known. The path you seek isn't out there. It's beneath your feet. It's within. There's a prison that doesn't look like a prison. It has no bars, no guards, no walls. You walk through it every day. You smile inside it, love inside it, raise children, chase dreams, go to work. And still, you feel it. That haunting weight, that invisible resistance, that echo of a question that never quite leaves you. Why do I keep ending up here? You think it's bad luck, or karma, or maybe you tell yourself, it's just the way things are. But the truth is quieter, and far more disturbing. You're not choosing your life, you're reliving it, over and over again. Different faces, same wound, different job, same emptiness, different year, same ache. That is not fate. That is a pattern. And patterns don't happen to you. They move through you until you see them, until you name them, until you take them back. Jung saw this long before the modern world knew how to name it. He watched people lose decades of their lives repeating emotional choreography they didn't even know they were dancing. Why? Because we are not raised to be conscious. We are raised to be accepted. And so the parts of us that didn't earn applause, the grief, the jealousy, the rage, the desire to scream when we were told to smile, got buried, not deleted, buried. And from that burial ground, they began to live a second life. Through our projections. You think people are judging you, but you're the one projecting judgment. You think your partner abandoned you, but you chose them because they mirrored the very wound you've never dared to touch. You think you're afraid of failure, but what you really fear is being seen. The unconscious doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in repetition. If a story in your life feels familiar, painfully familiar, it's because the psyche is looping until you wake up. And that's the invisible prison, repetition without recognition. You keep writing the same chapter, because somewhere inside you the story has never been finished. And it's not just your story. Jung revealed something most people still cannot fathom. You are not just shaped by your childhood. You are shaped by a memory older than your own body. The collective unconscious lives beneath your personal unconscious, like an ocean under an island. You stand on the shore of your individual experiences, but under your feet move tides that have existed since the beginning of human time. Ancient patterns, archetypal fears, mythic longings. Why do so many people feel unworthy of love? Because humanity has always told stories of exile and return. Because the wound of the abandoned child is not yours alone, it is ours. Why do so many people feel unseen? Because the archetype of the invisible one, the ghost, the outcast, the orphan, is woven into the fabric of our collective psyche. You are living a myth far older than your memory. You call it your breakup, your sabotage, your anxiety, but beneath those names is something sacred trying to be revealed. You call it your life, but it's not yours until you claim it. Until you reach into the chaos and ask, whose story am I reenacting? Whose wound have I inherited? Whose voice have I mistaken for my own? You are not just a character. You are the stage, the actors, the playwright, but only if you remember. Until then, the script will play itself, and it will end the same way every time. Not because you failed, but because you forgot you could rewrite it. This is the invisible prison, living a life authored by shadows you've never seen, letting fear make your choices, letting longing become self-betrayal, letting archetypes possess you when you were born to embody them, not be ruled by them. And so I ask again, what if your pain isn't just pain? What if it's a map? What if your life is not a problem to solve, but a myth to reclaim? There is a door inside you. You've walked past it your whole life. Sometimes it hums, sometimes it groans, sometimes it leaks in moments of shame or rage, confusion or craving. You feel it in the judgments you hurl when no one's watching, in the neediness you hide beneath performance, in the sudden coldness that overtakes your voice when you feel exposed. You feel it, and then you run from it. That door is your shadow, and behind it lives everything you were told not to be, the rage that scared your mother, the hunger that embarrassed your father, the brilliance that made others jealous, the softness that felt dangerous in a world demanding armor. All of it. Locked away. Not destroyed, just exiled. Jung wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. Because when you open that door, what you meet first is not peace, it's contradiction. You, who always played the peacemaker, carry violence. You who were always helpful, harbor resentment. You who strive to be spiritual, possess deep, undigested desire. You say, that's not me. But it is. It's just the part of you you never dared to know. The shadow isn't evil, it becomes hostile only when ignored. It's like a child locked in a basement, unfed, unheard, unloved. And then one day it breaks the door down. That's the argument you didn't mean to start. The betrayal you swore you'd never commit. The panic that came out of nowhere. You didn't fail, you leaked. Because the split between who you are and who you pretend to be can only hold so long. You call it sabotage, but the psyche calls it symmetry. It is trying always to become whole. And this is where the mask, the persona, begins to crack. You spent years building that mask. You wore it to be good, to be wanted, to be safe. But the longer you wear it, the more brittle it becomes. You start to forget what your own face looks like beneath it. The mask is not the problem. The problem is when you think it's the truth. So you show the world your curated self. And you bury the rest. Until the buried parts show themselves in strange ways. You lash out at the one who loves you most. You judge the person who mirrors your insecurities. You dream of running, but you don't know where. This is not dysfunction. This is the shadow, trying to speak. We imagine the shadow is always dark. But sometimes it's luminous. Sometimes what we bury is our power, our sensuality, our clarity, our knowing. Not because it's bad, but because someone once said it was too much. The shadow holds not only our shame, but our gold. Jung called this the golden shadow, the parts of ourselves so radiant we couldn't bear to own them, so we project them instead. You idolize someone, not because they have something you don't, but because they are reflecting something you won't claim. That writer you admire, that singer, that leader, that mystic, they are walking with a part of your soul. You praise them, instead of becoming them, until you claim your shadow, both its darkness and its light. You will continue to see yourself in others and feel like an outsider to your own life. But here's the truth no one tells you. You can't destroy the shadow. You can only integrate it. And integration is not a spiritual trend. It is a death. It is the moment you stop pretending. The moment you stop saying I'm fine when your bones are aching from the weight of your own silence. It is the terrifying, holy moment when you sit with the part of you that doesn't want to heal. The part that wants to rage, to seduce, to rest, to scream, to be ugly, to be real, to not be good just for one breath. And in that moment, If you can bear it, you do not become worse, you become whole. This is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, not self-improvement, not optimization. Individuation is the process of becoming your total self. It is not about changing who you are. It is about reclaiming who you were before you were trained to forget. And this process is not clean. It is not Instagrammable. It doesn't happen in 5 steps or 30 days. It happens in the long night, in the broken heart, in the repeating dream, in the therapy room, in the silence after everyone else has gone. It is messy. It is inconvenient. It is sacred. Because once you see your shadow, not as a monster, but as a mirror, you begin to recognize something. It wasn't trying to destroy you. It was trying to find you. It was the part of you that remembered, when the rest of you was too busy surviving, and now it waits. It waits for your courage, not to fight it, but to sit beside it, to listen, to ask, not what's wrong with me, but what have I exiled? Because once you ask, you will hear the answer, and it will not be an idea. It will be a face, your own, looking back through the veil of everything you once feared to feel. So go to the part of you you've never dared to meet, and when it speaks, listen. It may not use words. It may use tears, or silence, or a dream you had when you were 12, but it will speak, because the shadow has waited long enough. There comes a moment, if you're lucky, when the noise of the world becomes unbearable. Not because it gets louder, but because something inside you finally goes quiet. The roles you've played start to feel hollow. The rewards you chased lose their shine. The voice you've spent years performing begins to tremble. And you realize you've been living a life that never really fit. This is not the end. This is the beginning. What dies here is the false self. What is born is everything real. But first, you must withdraw. Not from the world, but from the version of yourself that was made for the world. The pleaser, the performer, the savior, the success story. All of them were strategies. Brilliant, beautiful, necessary strategies to survive. But survival is not the same as living. And the soul, when ignored long enough, will begin to rebel. So you must go inward, not as retreat, but as return. Solitude is not loneliness. It is presence without performance. In this sacred withdrawal, something ancient stirs. You begin to shed the masks, and for the first time, the silence is not empty. It is full of memories, full of ache, full of parts of you long buried beneath approval and expectation. You stop asking, who should I be? And start asking, who am I without all this? This is the descent Jung spoke of, not into darkness as punishment, but as passage. Like the mythic heroes who wandered into underworlds not to escape, but to remember. You enter the cave, and in the cave, you do not find answers. You find fragments of a child who once danced without shame, of a teenager who longed to scream, of a soul who used to dream in symbols and songs. You don't fix them, you welcome them. One by one they return, not to be judged, but to be rejoined. This is individuation, not becoming better, becoming whole. It is the breaking of illusion, the collapsing of persona. The sacred grief that comes when you realize how long you've lived in exile from your own essence. You may find yourself crying without knowing why. You may lose interest in things that once defined you. You may feel the ache of 1,000 unspoken truths surfacing at last. Do not panic. This is not regression. It is remembrance. The ego resists this process because the ego was built to protect. It fears death. But the self, the deep, mythic self that Jung pointed toward, knows that this kind of death is not an ending. It is a birth. And yes, it hurts. To let go of who you thought you were. To surrender the need to be admired. To face the loneliness of no longer fitting into the stories that once gave you shelter. But on the other side of that silence, something begins to bloom. Something not built by culture or conditioned by fear. Something eternal. You begin to feel yourself from the inside, not the outside. You begin to speak not to impress, but to express. You begin to walk with your shadow, not as enemy, but as companion. You begin to say no without guilt. You begin to say yes without explanation. And in this new stillness, the soul speaks. Not in language, in image, in dream, in intuition. In the sudden knowing that this path, painful as it is also holy. Because what is happening now is not collapse. It is alchemy. The parts of you once at war, reason and emotion, strength and softness, light and dark, begin to weave together. Not to cancel each other out, but to complete each other. You stop chasing the light and start trusting the whole sky. You stop running from the mirror and start listening to what it reflects. You stop fearing your own voice and begin singing the old song again, the one you came into this world knowing. This is not the end of individuation. It is the first step on a spiral that deepens forever. And no, not everyone will understand. Not everyone will stay. But you, with yourself, at last. And the stillness that once frightened you becomes your sanctuary. Because in that silence, something sacred has taken root. A life no longer built to please, but to reflect the soul that was never gone, only waiting. There is a moment, quiet, unannounced, when the truth becomes unbearable. And finally, you stop running. Not because you figured it all out, but because you're ready to feel what's been waiting. And that moment might be now. You weren't born to be perfect. You weren't born to be praised. You were born to become. And becoming isn't graceful. It isn't easy. It isn't clean. It's raw. It's aching. It's remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. You came into this world whole. And then the splitting began. Piece by piece, you gave parts of yourself away to be loved, to be safe, to be seen. But those pieces never stopped longing for you. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your inheritance. It holds everything you disowned in order to survive. And now the call is simple. Reclaim it. Face the parts of you that hurt, not to fix them, to know them. Because every wound contains a symbol. Every fear holds a myth. Every pattern, no matter how painful, is a ritual waiting to be completed. Your suffering has meaning, not as punishment, but as passage. The question is not, how do I change my life? The question is, am I willing to live the one that's truly mine? Fate is not the enemy. Fate is the name we give the unconscious when we refuse to make it conscious. Now you know, and what has been seen cannot be unseen. You are not late, you are not behind. You are exactly where the story turns. And the next chapter, it waits for your authorship. So breathe. If something in you stirred today, if a fragment remembered its name, honor it. Speak to it. Leave a comment below. Say the part of you that was listening. Not for me, but for you. To make it real. To let it echo. And if you want more, if your soul has tasted truth and now hungers for the whole feast, subscribe. Not for content, for continuation. Because this is not a video, it's an invocation. You were never broken, just asleep. And now, you are waking. Will you pretend you didn't hear this? Or will you answer the call? The mirror is still in your hand. Don't look away. Not this time.